The morning sun cast long shadows across the empty streets of what had once been New Sol Colony. Admiral Krextal of the Vorthak Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the settlement through the massive viewing screen. His eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he observed the scattered debris and abandoned buildings below. "It appears the humans fled in great haste," his second-in-command reported, tentacles clicking against the control panel as data flowed across the screen. "Our sensors detect minimal life signs. Perhaps some small animals or automated systems still functioning." Krextal nodded his massive head, pleased with what he saw. The Vorthak had been expanding their territory for months, pushing deeper into human space. Most colonies put up fierce resistance, making conquest costly and time-consuming. But this settlement on Kepler 442b appeared to be a gift from the void itself. "Prepare a landing team," Krextal ordered. "I want that settlement surveyed within the day. If the infrastructure is intact, we can establish a forward base here." 3 kilometers below the orbiting Vorthak fleet, Captain Yoon crouched in the main communications bunker, watching the alien ships through a hidden periscope. The underground facility hummed quietly with activity, as dozens of human soldiers prepared for what they had trained months to accomplish. 6 heavy cruisers and at least 20 smaller vessels, Yoon reported into his headset. "They're taking the bait." Colonel Lee stood at the central command table, studying holographic displays that showed every building, every street, and every hiding place in the settlement above. His weathered face remained calm despite the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. Around him, his staff worked quietly at their stations, monitoring sensor feeds and preparing for the battle to come. "Communications," Lee called to the young woman at the radio station. "Kim, are all teams in position?" Specialist Kim looked up from her bank of screens and nodded. "Yes, sir. All units report ready. The tunnel network is clear and all weapon systems are on standby." Lee turned to another officer hunched over technical readouts. "Park, what's the status on our disguised systems?" Engineer Park straightened up, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Everything's ready, Colonel. The power grid appears dead from above, but we can bring all systems online in 30 seconds. The defensive positions look like rubble piles, but they're fully operational. Even our command bunker reads as a natural cave formation on their sensors." Plan had taken 8 months to prepare. When intelligence reported that Vorthak forces were moving toward their sector, the military command made a bold decision. Instead of evacuating New Sol Colony or reinforcing it for a siege, they chose a third option. They would make it appear abandoned while turning it into the most sophisticated trap ever devised. Every civilian had been secretly relocated to underground cities on the planet's far side. The surface settlement was carefully modified to look hastily evacuated. Personal belongings were scattered in homes. Vehicles were left with doors open as if their owners had fled in panic. Even the power systems were rigged to appear damaged while remaining fully functional. Meanwhile, hundreds of soldiers and support staff moved into the extensive bunker system that had been carved from the rock beneath the settlement. Supply tunnels connected every major building. Weapon positions were disguised as collapsed structures. The entire colony became a stage set, designed to lure the enemy into a killing ground. Above ground, the Vorthak landing craft descended toward the settlement's main plaza. The alien soldiers that emerged moved with the confidence of a superior force investigating an abandoned outpost. Their energy weapons gleamed in the afternoon light as they spread out in standard search formation. Captain Yoon watched from his hidden position as the alien troops began their sweep of the nearest buildings. The Vorthak moved efficiently, checking each structure methodically. They found exactly what the humans wanted them to find: empty rooms with signs of hasty departure, broken furniture that suggested panic, computer terminals that appeared to have been damaged during evacuation. "They're buying it completely," Yoon whispered into his communicator. Deep in the command bunker, Colonel Lee monitored the alien movements through dozens of hidden cameras. The Vorthak had no idea that their every step was being recorded and analyzed. Intelligence Officer Han stood beside him, taking notes on alien equipment and tactics. "Look at their formation," Han observed quietly. They're not expecting any resistance at all. Standard sweep pattern for abandoned facilities. In another section of the bunker, Sergeant Nam prepared his infantry teams for the coming battle. The soldiers checked their weapons and reviewed the tunnel maps one final time. Each team knew their role perfectly. They had drilled these movements until they could navigate the underground passages in complete darkness. "Remember," Nam told his troops, "we stay hidden until the colonel gives the word. No matter what happens up there, we don't move until the entire alien force is committed to the settlement." The first Vorthak patrol entered the colony's administrative building, where the settlement's government had once operated. The aliens found desks covered with papers, as if important documents had been gathered for evacuation but then abandoned. Computer screens flickered occasionally, suggesting failing power systems. What the Vorthak could not see was the sophisticated sensor array hidden in the building's walls, tracking their movements and transmitting data to the command center below, nor could they detect the weapons platforms concealed behind false walls, ready to emerge at a moment's notice. Lieutenant Choi monitored the alien advance from her position in the tactical center. "First squad is in Building 7, she reported. Second squad approaching the residential sector." Colonel Lee studied the tactical display, watching as green dots representing Vorthak forces spread throughout the settlement. Each alien soldier was tracked by the hidden sensor network. The humans knew exactly where their enemies were at all times, while remaining completely invisible themselves. "Sir," Communications Specialist Kim called from her station. "The aliens are reporting back to their ship. They're telling command that the settlement appears completely abandoned and suitable for occupation." Lee allowed himself a small smile. "Perfect. Signal all units to maintain concealment. Let them get comfortable." As the sun began to set over New Seoul Colony, the Vorthak forces established a temporary command post in the settlement's central square. They had found no resistance, no booby traps, and no signs that anyone had remained behind. To them, it appeared to be exactly what their sensors had indicated from orbit. An abandoned human settlement, ripe for the taking. But beneath their feet, hundreds of human soldiers waited in absolute silence, ready to teach the Vorthak Empire a lesson about the dangers of underestimating human ingenuity. 3 days had passed since the Vorthak forces first landed at New Seoul Colony. Admiral Krextal stood in what had been the settlement's town hall, now converted into his temporary headquarters. Maps of the surrounding area covered the walls, and alien communication equipment hummed constantly as reports flowed in from survey teams across the colony. "The humans left behind more than we expected," his intelligence officer reported, mandibles clicking with excitement. "We have found intact manufacturing equipment in the industrial sector. Their medical facilities contain valuable pharmaceutical supplies. Even some of their computer systems still hold useful data." Krextal examined a human tablet that his troops had recovered from one of the residential buildings. The device showed family photos and personal messages, evidence of the panic that must have gripped the colonists when they learned of the Vorthak advance. "What about defenses?" he asked. "Any signs of military preparation?" "None whatsoever, Admiral. This was clearly a civilian settlement with minimal security systems. We found a small security office with basic equipment, but nothing that could threaten our forces. The humans appear to have relied entirely on evacuation as their defense strategy." Below ground, Colonel Lee listened to every word through hidden microphones placed throughout the administrative building. The alien commander's voice carried, clearly through the advanced listening devices that Engineer Park had installed during the settlement's construction. Every conversation, every order, every casual comment was being recorded and analyzed. "They're getting comfortable," Lee observed to his staff. "Intelligence estimates they'll call in the main occupation force within the week." Major Han studied the surveillance feeds showing Vorthak soldiers exploring the colony's various districts. The aliens moved with increasing confidence, no longer maintaining tight security formations. Some had even begun removing their combat armor during off-duty. "Hours. Sir, they're treating this like a vacation posting," Han reported. "Look at this feed from the residential sector. They're actually setting up recreational areas in some of the abandoned homes." The display showed Vorthak soldiers lounging in human furniture, sampling food from abandoned pantries and even attempting to operate human entertainment systems. Their guard was dropping with each passing hour as the settlement continued to appear completely harmless. In the communications center, Specialist Kim monitored alien radio traffic with growing amazement. "Colonel, you need to hear this. They're already making plans to bring in civilian administrators and support staff. One of their commanders is discussing turning the school building into a recreational center." Colonel Lee allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The deception was working even better than planned. The Vorthak were not simply occupying the settlement as a temporary base. They were planning to make it a permanent installation, which meant they would commit far more resources than originally expected. Captain Yoon emerged from one of the tunnel access points, having completed his daily reconnaissance of the surface. His team had spent hours moving through concealed passages, observing alien activities and updating intelligence reports. "The perimeter guards are getting sloppy," Yoon reported. "They've reduced the number of sentries and pulled their patrol routes closer to the main buildings. The outer sensor posts they established are only manned during shift changes." This was exactly what the human planners had hoped for. The longer the aliens remained in the settlement without incident, the more they would relax their security measures. Overconfidence was a weakness that could be exploited when the time came to spring the trap. Engineer Park spent his time making final adjustments to the hidden weapon systems throughout the colony. Each building contained concealed, defensive positions that appeared to be nothing more than structural damage or decorative elements. Power conduits ran through hidden channels, ready to energize the entire network of weapons and sensors at a moment's notice. "All systems check green," Park reported during the daily briefing. "The aliens have actually improved our defensive positions by clearing some debris that was blocking firing lanes. They're doing our work for us." In the medical bay, Dr. Shin reviewed casualty projections and prepared surgical suites for the coming battle. The underground hospital was fully equipped to handle major trauma cases, with supplies and equipment that rivaled any military medical facility. She had trained her staff extensively on treating both human and alien physiology, knowing that wounded prisoners would require care as well. "We're ready for whatever comes," Shin assured Colonel Lee. "The medical teams know their roles, and we have enough supplies for an extended engagement." Supply Officer Lim managed the complex logistics of keeping hundreds of soldiers fed, equipped, and ready while maintaining complete secrecy. The underground storage areas contained months of provisions, ammunition, and spare parts. Everything needed to sustain a prolonged military operation had been stockpiled in advance. "Morale remains high," Lim reported. "The troops understand the importance of this mission. They know they're making history." Above ground, the Vorthak continued their systematic cataloging of human technology and resources. They had established storage areas for valuable equipment, set up processing centers for useful materials, and even begun rudimentary repairs on some systems they planned to use themselves. A Vorthak engineering team worked on restoring power to one of the residential blocks, unaware that the building's electrical systems were already fully functional and under human control. Every wire they connected, every switch they activated was monitored and could be overridden from the command center below. "They're integrating their own equipment with our systems," Communications Specialist Kim observed with amusement. "When we activate our jamming protocols, their entire communication network will go down along with ours." The psychological aspect of the operation was proceeding flawlessly as well. Intercepted alien communications revealed growing confidence and relaxation among the occupation forces. Some soldiers were already writing messages home describing their easy assignment and the valuable resources they had discovered. One intercepted transmission particularly pleased Colonel Lee. A Vorthak commander was recommending that New Sol Colony be designated as a model for future human conquests, suggesting that other human settlements might be equally vulnerable to surprise attack. "Perfect," Lee muttered. "Let them think we're all helpless civilians who run at the first sign of trouble." As the fourth day dawned over the settlement, the Vorthak forces had fully integrated themselves into the colony's infrastructure. They had made it their temporary home, never suspecting that they were living directly above one of the most sophisticated military installations ever constructed. The trap was set, and the prey had walked willingly into the snare. The first sign that something was wrong came on the sixth day. Sergeant Vexmore of the Vorthak 3rd Reconnaissance Unit reported that his patrol's communication equipment had malfunctioned 3 times during their morning sweep of the industrial district. Each time the radios produced only static before mysteriously returning to normal function. Equipment failures happen, his commander dismissed. Human technology probably left electromagnetic interference in their abandoned factories. But Vexmore was not convinced. In his years of military service, he had developed an instinct for danger. Something about this settlement felt different, though he could not identify exactly what troubled him. 2 levels beneath the industrial district, reconnaissance specialist Bayek moved silently through a maintenance tunnel. His team had spent the night installing additional monitoring equipment in the alien-occupied buildings. Every Vorthak patrol route, every guard post, every communication relay was now under constant human surveillance. Target acquired, Beck whispered into his throat microphone. Vorthak patrol passing checkpoint 7. 3 soldiers, standard patrol weapons, moving toward the manufacturing complex. In the command center, Lieutenant Choi tracked the alien, movements on her tactical display. Each Vorthak soldier appeared as a red dot on the 3-dimensional map of the settlement. The human forces could see exactly where every enemy was at all times, while remaining completely invisible themselves. Beck, this is Control, Choi transmitted. Be advised, alien patrol approaching your exit tunnel in 5 minutes. Remain in position until they pass. The underground tunnel network had been designed with multiple escape routes and hiding places for exactly this purpose. Human reconnaissance teams could move throughout the settlement without ever being detected by the occupying forces above. On the surface, more equipment failures began to occur. A Vorthak supply officer discovered that several cargo containers had been opened during the night, though nothing appeared to be missing. Security cameras in the residential sector showed brief moments of static before returning to normal. Power fluctuations affected lighting in random buildings throughout the colony. Sir, we may have a problem, the Vorthak intelligence officer reported to Admiral Krextal. Multiple system failures across different sectors. It could be sabotage. Krextal studied the reports with growing concern. The failures were too scattered to be caused by a single technical problem, but too random to suggest organized resistance. If humans had remained behind in hiding, they would surely have attacked by now, rather than engaging in minor harassment. Double the guard patrols, he ordered. I want every building searched again. If someone is hiding here, we will find them. Deep in the command bunker, Colonel Lee watched the alien response with satisfaction. The mysterious equipment failures were not accidents or sabotage. They were carefully timed psychological operations designed to make the enemy paranoid and uncertain. Park, excellent work on the electronic warfare, Lee complimented his engineer. The aliens are starting to question what they're seeing. Engineer. Park grinned at his bank of control systems. Just wait until Phase 2, sir. I have some surprises that will really get their attention. The psychological pressure campaign intensified over the following days. Supply caches that had been sealed appeared disturbed when guards returned to check them. Alien soldiers reported hearing strange sounds from empty buildings, only to find nothing when they investigated. Motion sensors triggered alerts in areas where no movement should have been possible. Medic Shin monitored the stress levels of the enemy forces through intercepted medical communications. The Vorthak field medics were reporting increased cases of anxiety and sleep disorders among their troops. The constant minor incidents were wearing down alien morale exactly as planned. Their psychological profile matches our projections, Shin reported. Prolonged uncertainty is affecting their combat effectiveness. Some soldiers are requesting reassignment to other postings. Captain Yoon led increasingly bold reconnaissance missions through the settlement. His teams placed additional sensors, moved equipment to confuse alien inventory efforts, and even left subtle signs of human presence in locations where they would be noticed, but not immediately understood. We found their main ammunition depot, Yoon reported after returning from a nighttime operation. It's in the old community center, heavily guarded but poorly positioned. When the shooting starts, we can cut off their resupply easily. The intelligence gathered during these missions was invaluable for planning the coming battle. The humans now knew the exact location of every important alien facility. the rotation schedule for guard units, and the response procedures for various types of alerts. Demolitions. Expert Kang used this intelligence to place additional charges near critical alien installations. The Vorthak would never see the explosives coming, hidden as they were within the very infrastructure the aliens had chosen to use. Charges are set and ready, Kang confirmed during the evening briefing. Their communication center, vehicle park, and command post can all be eliminated simultaneously when you give the word, Colonel. The alien paranoia reached new heights when a Vorthak patrol reported seeing human figures moving between buildings during a rainstorm. By the time reinforcements arrived to investigate, the area was empty except for muddy footprints that led nowhere. Impossible, the patrol leader insisted. We saw them clearly. At least 3 humans moving from the residential block toward the school building. But security camera footage showed nothing except rain and shadows. The Vorthak commander began to wonder if his troops were seeing things that were not there. The stress of occupying a potentially hostile territory was beginning to affect their perception and judgment. Supply Officer Lim coordinated the complex logistics of keeping human forces fed and equipped while maintaining absolute secrecy. Food had to be prepared without producing any smoke or odors that might be detected. Waste disposal required careful planning to avoid leaving any traces. Even the air circulation systems had to be managed to prevent any sounds from reaching the surface. We're invisible to them, Lim reported proudly. They have no idea that 400 human soldiers are living right beneath their feet. The Psychological Operations Campaign achieved its primary goal when intercepted communications revealed that some Vorthak officers were recommending evacuation of the settlement. The constant minor incidents and equipment failures had created an atmosphere of uncertainty and fear that was undermining the occupation force's confidence. Admiral, perhaps we should consider relocating to a different site, one commander suggested during a command meeting. This settlement may be more trouble than it is worth. But Admiral Krextal refused to be driven away by what he considered minor technical problems and overactive imaginations. We will not retreat from ghosts and equipment failures. This colony has too much strategic value to abandon because some soldiers are jumping at shadows. The decision to remain sealed the Vorthak fate. By choosing to stay despite mounting evidence that something was wrong, they committed themselves fully to the trap that Colonel Lee had prepared. The human forces continued their hidden observations, gathering intelligence and waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves. As the second week of occupation began, the Vorthak forces found themselves in an increasingly uncomfortable position. They controlled the settlement's surface, but they no longer felt secure in their possession. Every shadow might hide an enemy. Every equipment failure might be sabotage. Every sound might herald an attack. The Watchers had become the watched, though they did not yet understand how completely they had been observed and analyzed. The trap was nearly ready to spring. The moment Colonel Lee had waited for arrived when Vorthak reinforcements descended from orbit. Admiral Krextal had decided to establish a permanent garrison at New Sol Colony, and 3 additional transport ships carrying troops and equipment settled onto the settlement's expanded landing field. Sir, alien force strength now at 800 soldiers plus support personnel, Lieutenant Choi reported from her monitoring station. They're unloading heavy equipment and construction materials. This appears to be their full commitment to the site. Lee studied the tactical displays showing the massive alien presence throughout the settlement. After 2 weeks of careful observation, he knew exactly where every enemy unit was positioned. The time for hiding was over. All stations, this is Colonel Lee, he announced over the underground communication network. Operation Springtrap is now active. All units assume battle positions and await my signal. Throughout the extensive bunker system, 400 human soldiers moved to their assigned positions with practiced efficiency. Weapons were checked, armor secured, and final preparations made for the most ambitious military deception in human history. In the engineering section, Park's fingers flew over his control panels. All systems green, sir. Power grid ready to activate on your command. Defensive positions are armed and targeting systems are online. Above ground, the Vorthak forces continued their routine activities, unaware that their every movement was being tracked by hidden sensors. The alien commander had chosen the administrative building as his permanent headquarters, never knowing that it sat directly above the human command center. Sergeant Nam, report status. Lee called to his infantry. Commander, all assault teams in position, Colonel. Tunnel access points are clear and ready. We can have troops inside any building in the settlement within 60 seconds of your order. The trap had been designed with multiple phases, each building upon the confusion created by the previous one. The first phase would eliminate alien, communications, and heavy weapons. The second would flood the settlement with human troops emerging from concealed positions. The third would systematically eliminate all resistance using superior knowledge of the terrain. Demolitions expert Kang waited at his firing controls, watching displays that showed the exact location of every explosive charge he had placed throughout the settlement. Charges armed and ready, sir. I can take out their vehicle park, communication center, and ammunition depot simultaneously. Lee took a deep breath and activated the settlement-wide communication system. All units execute on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. The first indication that something was wrong came when every electronic device in the Vorthak command post suddenly went dead. Admiral Krextal watched in shock as screens went blank, communication equipment failed, and even basic lighting systems shut down throughout the building. What is happening? He demanded, but his officers had no answers. Similar failures were occurring simultaneously across the entire settlement as Park's electronic warfare systems jammed alien communications and disabled their equipment. The second phase began when buildings that had appeared damaged or abandoned suddenly came alive with activity. Hidden weapon emplacements emerged from concealed positions, rotating toward their targets with mechanical precision. What had looked like debris piles revealed themselves to be camouflaged bunkers bristling with firearms. Sergeant Nam's voice echoed through the tunnel system as he led the first assault teams toward their objectives. First squad, take the vehicle. Park. Second squad, secure the landing field. Third squad, surround the command building. Remember, we want prisoners for intelligence. The Vorthak soldiers found themselves under attack from directions they had never considered. Human troops emerged from maintenance tunnels, storm drains, and basement access points throughout the settlement. Buildings that had been searched repeatedly disgorged armed fighters who seemed to appear from nowhere. Captain Yoon led a team through the industrial sector, using his intimate knowledge of the tunnel network to appear behind alien defensive positions. Control, this is Yoon. Industrial sector secured. Enemy forces retreating toward the residential area. The aliens tried to mount a coordinated defense, but their communications remained jammed and their command structure had been shattered by the surprise attack. Individual units fought bravely but without coordination, unable to call for support or receive orders from their commanders. Kang's explosive charges detonated in sequence, eliminating the alien vehicle park in a series of brilliant fireballs. Transport craft and armored vehicles disappeared in the explosions, cutting off any hope of evacuation for the stranded Vorthak forces. Target destroyed, Kang reported with satisfaction. Their mobility is gone, and their heavy weapons are neutralized. In the medical bay, Dr. Shin prepared for the casualties that would inevitably result from the battle. Her team stood ready to treat both human wounded and alien prisoners, following the rules of war even in this desperate situation. Medical teams report ready, Colonel. Emergency surgical suites are active and trauma teams are standing by. The residential sector became a maze of running battles as Vorthak troops tried to establish defensive positions among the abandoned homes. But every building held surprises for the aliens. Hidden passages allowed human forces to attack from unexpected directions. Seemingly empty rooms contained concealed weapons and fighting positions. Major Han coordinated artillery strikes from hidden positions outside the settlement. The Vorthak had never detected these weapon emplacements, and now they provided devastating fire support for the human assault teams. Fire mission complete, Han reported. Enemy strongpoint in the school building has been neutralized. Infantry can advance. Admiral Krextal found himself trapped in the administrative building with a handful of surviving staff officers. The humans had cut off all escape routes and surrounded the structure with overwhelming force. He could hear weapons fire echoing through the settlement as his scattered forces were systematically eliminated. Admiral, we must surrender, his intelligence officer pleaded. Our forces are outnumbered and cut off. There is no possibility of escape or reinforcement. But Krextal refused to accept defeat. The fleet will detect our distress and send help. We must hold until reinforcements arrive. What the Admiral did not know was that the human forces had been jamming all communication since the battle began. No distress signals had reached the Vorthak fleet in orbit, and no help would be coming. Communications specialist Kim monitored enemy transmissions from her position in the command center. Colonel, alien forces are attempting to rally at the Mayais community center. They're using short-range radios to coordinate a final defensive stand. Lee studied the tactical situation on his displays. Most of the settlement was now under human control, with isolated pockets of alien resistance being systematically eliminated. The battle was proceeding exactly as planned. All units, maintain pressure but avoid unnecessary casualties, Lee ordered. We want as many prisoners as possible for intelligence purposes. Supply Officer Lim coordinated the flow of ammunition and equipment to the assault teams through the tunnel network. The logistics system worked flawlessly, keeping human forces supplied while the aliens found themselves cut off from their own supply depots. Resupply complete to all sectors, Lim reported. Our forces have everything they need to complete the operation. As the sun set over New Sol Colony, the sound of weapons fire gradually diminished. The trap had worked perfectly, catching the entire Vorthak occupation force in a carefully prepared killing ground. The settlement that had appeared abandoned and defenseless had revealed itself to be one of the most sophisticated military installations ever constructed. The aliens learned too late that they had not conquered a human colony. They had walked willingly into a fortress designed specifically to destroy them. The hunters had become the hunted, and the trap had finally sprung. The battle for New Sol Colony entered its most intense phase as scattered Vorthak forces attempted to regroup and fight their way out of the settlement. What had been a coordinated occupation force was now broken into desperate groups of soldiers, trying to survive in a hostile environment where every building might hide enemies. Lieutenant Choi directed human forces through the tunnel network with the precision of a master chess player. Her tactical display showed the position of every friendly and enemy unit throughout the settlement, allowing her to coordinate complex maneuvers that kept the aliens constantly off balance. Second platoon, enemy squad moving toward your position. Through the market district, she transmitted. Third platoon flanked them from the south using tunnel access point 7. The Vorthak soldiers found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to know the settlement better than they knew their own bodies. Human troops appeared from storm drains, emerged through false walls, and struck from directions that should have been impossible. The aliens began to realize that the entire colony had been designed as a three-dimensional battlefield. Sergeant Nam led his assault teams through the residential sector, where desperate Vorthak troops had barricaded themselves in human homes. The irony was not lost on him that the aliens were now hiding in the very buildings they had so confidently occupied just hours before. House-to-house clearing in progress, Nam reported as his teams systematically worked through each building. Aliens are putting up strong resistance, but they have no escape routes. We're taking prisoners where possible. In one abandoned home, a Vorthak squad had overturned furniture to create firing positions near the windows. They did not know that the house's basement connected to the tunnel network, allowing human forces to attack from below. The surprised aliens found themselves caught between enemies firing from multiple levels of the same building. Captain Yoon's reconnaissance team had shifted to a new role during the battle, using their knowledge of hidden passages to rescue wounded human soldiers and evacuate them through concealed routes. Their ability to move unseen through the combat zone made them invaluable for maintaining human casualties at minimum levels. Wounded soldier extracted from the industrial sector, Yoon, reported to the medical teams, and 2 more casualties in the community center, but we cannot reach them until the building is secured. The community center had become a fortress for the largest group of surviving Vorthak forces. Nearly 200 alien soldiers had gathered there, using its large open spaces and solid construction to establish a defensive position. They had stockpiled weapons and supplies looted from other locations, preparing for a prolonged siege. Major Han positioned his artillery teams to support, The assault on the community center while avoiding damage to the surrounding structures. The humans needed those buildings intact for their own purposes after the battle ended. Artillery ready, but we need to be careful, Han warned Colonel Lee. Too much firepower and we'll bring down half the residential block. The tunnel network won't survive that kind of structural damage. Lee studied the tactical situation carefully. The community center was heavily defended, but it was also a trap for the aliens inside. Unlike the humans who could move freely through the tunnel network, the Vorthak forces were confined to the surface with no means of escape. Surround the building but do not assault, Lee ordered. Cut off their supplies and wait for them to surrender. Time is on our side now. Engineer Park had been busy throughout the battle, using his control systems to manipulate the settlement's infrastructure in support of human forces. Power could be cut to buildings occupied by aliens while maintaining electricity for human positions. Water systems could be redirected to flood enemy strongholds while keeping friendly areas dry. Sir, I can shut down all utilities to the community center, Park offered. No power, no water, no environmental systems. They'll be fighting in the dark within an hour. The psychological warfare continued as human forces used loudspeakers to broadcast surrender demands in the Vorthak language. The aliens inside the community center could hear the sounds of battle diminishing throughout the settlement, making it clear that they were increasingly isolated. Dr. Shin had established forward medical posts throughout the tunnel network, allowing her teams to treat wounded soldiers close to the fighting. The underground medical facilities had proven their worth, keeping human casualties low despite the intensity of the urban combat. Medical report, Shin transmitted to Colonel Lee. 18 wounded humans, all expected to recover fully. We're also treating 37 alien prisoners. No medical complications among the captured personnel. The aliens in the community center made several attempts to break out of their encirclement, but each assault was repelled by human forces who knew exactly where the attacks would come from. The settlement's sensor network continued to function perfectly, giving the defenders complete awareness of enemy movements. Demolitions. Expert Kang had been saving his most impressive surprise for this moment. The community center sat above a large underground chamber that had been excavated during the settlement's construction. With careful placement of charges, he could collapse the building's floor and drop the alien defenders into a pit from which escape would be impossible. Colonel, I can end this siege in 10 minutes, Kang offered. One controlled demolition and they'll all be captured alive with minimal casualties on either side. But Lee wanted to preserve the building if possible. The community center would be useful for processing prisoners and conducting interrogations once the battle ended. Instead, he chose to continue the siege and wait for the inevitable surrender. Communications. Specialist Kim intercepted increasingly desperate radio transmissions from the surrounded aliens. Their short-range radios revealed growing panic and declining morale as the reality of their situation became clear. Sir, they're discussing surrender options, Kim reported. Some officers want to fight to the death, but most of the troops just want to go home. Their unit cohesion is breaking down. The end came suddenly when a group of junior Vorthak officers in the community center decided to ignore their commanders and surrendered their positions. White flags appeared in several windows, and alien soldiers began emerging with their hands raised in the universal gesture of submission. Ceasefire, ceasefire, Lee commanded as the surrender began. All units hold positions and allow the aliens to surrender safely. Treat all prisoners according to military law. Admiral Krextal was among the last to surrender, emerging from the administrative building only after his staff convinced him that continued resistance was futile. The proud Vorthak commander found himself face-to-face with Colonel Lee in the same room where he had planned the occupation of human territory. You have fought well, Krextal admitted grudgingly as human soldiers secured his weapons. But how is this possible? Our sensors showed this settlement was abandoned. Our intelligence indicated no military presence. Lee smiled as he gestured toward the tactical display still showing the extensive underground network. Admiral, you never conquered a human settlement. You walked into a military fortress designed specifically to destroy your forces. Every building, every street, every piece of infrastructure was a weapon waiting to be activated. Supply Officer Lim coordinated the processing of nearly 600 Vorthak prisoners. the largest single capture of enemy forces in the war. The tunnel network proved invaluable for moving and housing such large numbers of captives securely. Prisoner. Processing complete, Lim reported. All aliens accounted for and secured in temporary holding facilities. Medical teams are treating their wounded, and we're preparing detailed intelligence reports. As dawn broke over New Sol Colony, the battle was finally over. The settlement that had appeared to be an easy conquest had proven to be the most sophisticated military trap ever devised. Human ingenuity and planning had turned apparent weakness into devastating strength, teaching the Vorthak Empire a lesson they would never forget about underestimating human determination and tactical brilliance. The morning sun cast long shadows across New Sol Colony as the final Vorthak prisoners were processed and secured. What had begun as an alien occupation had ended as the most complete military victory in recent human history. Colonel Lee stood in the settlement's central plaza, surveying the scene of humanity's greatest deception. Around him, human soldiers emerged from their underground positions, blinking in the sunlight after weeks of living in hidden tunnels. The transformation was remarkable to witness. Buildings that had appeared damaged and abandoned suddenly showed signs of activity as concealed systems came online and disguised facilities revealed their true purpose. "Sir, final count shows 637 Vorthak prisoners captured," Lieutenant Choi reported as she approached with a data pad full of statistics. "We also recovered intact examples of their most advanced weapons and communication equipment. Intelligence is going to have a field day with this material." Admiral Krextall sat in what had been his own command post, now converted to an interrogation room. Human intelligence officers had spent hours explaining to him exactly how thoroughly his forces had been deceived. The proud Vorthak commander struggled to comprehend the scope of the trap he had walked into. "Your settlement was never abandoned," he said slowly, still trying to process the revelation. "The entire evacuation was staged for our benefit." Colonel Lee nodded as he reviewed the after-action reports. "Every detail was planned months in advance, Admiral. We knew your forces were approaching, and we prepared accordingly. What you thought was a panicked evacuation was actually the most complex military deception ever attempted. The underground command center had been transformed into a bustling intelligence processing facility. Communications specialist Kim worked with teams of analysts to decode captured Vorthak equipment and extract valuable information about alien military capabilities. "Colonel, we've cracked their communication protocols," Kim announced excitedly. "We now have access to their fleet coordination frequencies and tactical doctrines. This intelligence advantage could change the entire course of the war." Engineer Park supervised teams of technicians as they brought the settlement's hidden systems fully online. Power flowed to facilities that had been dark for weeks. Manufacturing equipment that had appeared broken proved to be in perfect working order. Even the transport systems connecting different parts of the colony revealed themselves to be far more sophisticated than any alien scanner had detected. Every major system was designed with dual purposes, Park explained to a group of captured Vorthak engineers who watched in amazement. "What you saw as civilian infrastructure was actually military equipment in disguise. Even our sewage treatment plant contains weapon manufacturing facilities." The medical facilities proved their value in the aftermath of battle as Dr. Shin's teams treated both human wounded and alien prisoners with equal care. The underground hospitals had capabilities that impressed even the Vorthak medical officers, who had assumed human colonies possessed only basic healthcare systems. "We're treating your wounded according to our military medical protocols," Shin explained to the alien medical staff. "Your soldiers will receive the same standard of care as our own troops." Captain Yoon led tours of the tunnel network for selected Vorthak officers, showing them the true extent of the underground installation. The aliens were stunned to discover that nearly every building in the settlement connected to the vast subterranean complex. "This passage runs directly under your former headquarters," Yoon explained as he guided the prisoners through a wide tunnel. "We monitored every conversation, every meeting, every decision you made. You were never in command of this settlement. We were watching your every move from the moment you landed." Major Han coordinated with the arriving human reinforcements, who found a fully operational military base where they had expected to see the aftermath of a desperate battle. The relief force had prepared for a rescue operation, only to discover that no rescue was needed. Reinforcements report all friendly forces accounted for and in good condition, Han announced during the evening briefing. Casualties were minimal, thanks to our tactical advantage. The underground facility performed exactly as designed. Supply Officer Lim managed the complex task of cataloging captured Vorthak equipment and supplies. The alien force had brought enough materials to establish a permanent base, all of which now belonged to human forces. The windfall of advanced technology and military hardware would benefit human defenses for years to come. Equipment inventory complete, Lim reported. We've captured enough alien technology to outfit several human regiments with advanced weapons and defensive systems. Their transport vehicles alone are worth more than the entire cost of this operation. Sergeant Nam addressed his infantry troops as they emerged from their underground positions for the first time since the battle began. The soldiers had performed flawlessly under the most unusual circumstances, living and fighting in a three-dimensional battlefield that few military forces had ever experienced. Every soldier in this unit can be proud of what we accomplished, Nam told his assembled troops. We proved that human ingenuity and determination can overcome any technological advantage. The enemy came here expecting easy conquest and found instead the fight of their lives. Demolitions. Expert Kang supervised the disposal of explosive charges that had not been needed during the battle. The settlement contained enough hidden weapons to level every building twice over, but the successful deception had made most of the firepower unnecessary. We planned for every possibility, Kang explained to military observers who had arrived to study the operation. If the aliens had discovered our presence too early, we could have turned this entire colony into a crater rather than let them use it as a base. Fortunately, the deception worked perfectly and such drastic measures were not required. The intelligence value of the operation extended far beyond the captured equipment and prisoners. Human forces had observed Vorthak military procedures, tactics, and decision-making processes under real combat conditions. This knowledge would prove invaluable in future engagements with alien forces. Reconnaissance specialist Bayek compiled detailed reports on alien patrol patterns, communication procedures, and reaction protocols. His teams had observed the Vorthak forces for weeks without being detected, gathering intelligence that no amount of captured equipment could provide. We know how they think now, Beck explained to the intelligence officers. We've seen how they respond to different types of threats, how they make decisions under pressure, and what their tactical blind spots are. This information is worth more than all their technology combined. As news of the victory spread throughout human space, New Sol Colony became a symbol of human resistance and ingenuity. Military academies would study the operation for generations, using it as an example of how creative thinking and careful planning could overcome superior numbers and technology. This operation will change how humans approach military defense, Colonel Lee observed during his final briefing. We've proven that apparent weakness can be turned into devastating strength with proper preparation and execution. The Vorthak prisoners underwent extensive debriefing sessions where they gradually came to understand the full scope of what had happened to them. Many of the alien soldiers expressed grudging respect for human tactical abilities, even as they struggled to comprehend how completely they had been deceived. Your species thinks differently than we do, Admiral Krextal admitted during one of his interrogation sessions. We saw what our sensors told us to see. You made us see what you wanted us to see. It is a form of warfare we do not understand. Settlement's true nature became apparent as more systems came online. The school building revealed itself to be an advanced training facility. The hospital expanded to show sophisticated research laboratories. Even the recreational areas contained hidden manufacturing equipment capable of producing military supplies. Every civilian facility had a military backup function, Engineer Park demonstrated to visiting officials. The theater could serve as a command center. The library contained weapon storage areas. The restaurant kitchens were designed to feed an entire army. Nothing was what it appeared to be. Communications networks throughout human space carried the story of the victory, boosting morale and demonstrating that the alien invasion could be stopped. Other colonies began implementing similar defensive strategies, using the lessons learned at New Sol to prepare their own hidden fortifications. The Vorthak Empire believed humans were weak and unprepared for war, communications specialist Kim reported as she monitored alien military frequencies. This operation has forced them to reconsider that assessment. Their forces are showing increased caution and respect for human defensive capabilities. Dr. Shin established medical protocols for treating captured alien personnel that became the standard for prisoner care throughout human military forces. Her compassionate treatment of enemy wounded helped demonstrate human values even in the midst of war. Treating prisoners well serves multiple purposes, Shin explained to medical officers from other colonies. It maintains our moral standards, provides opportunities for intelligence gathering, and may encourage future enemy surrenders rather than